Weekend, an annual concert that turns tragedy into tunes. Today, KLTV7's JD Conti spoke with the parents of Evie Domingos.
Her parents are using their daughter's story to raise awareness and bring light to others.
Standing on stage and saying, hey, you can go through something completely tragic and still be standing is so important because it gives people hope.
Michael and Jessica Domingos are Evie's parents. Evie died by suicide when she was 12. Since her death, they've started their nonprofit, the Evie Effect. Their annual Evie Rocks concert had 1,200 attendees last year. It's about building community with a tip of the hat to its inspiration.
You ask her about a particular band, she could tell you their entire history.
The family first started out painting rocks, little pieces of inspiration, now all over the world.
We've had them hidden in Egypt, Japan, London, Paris.
Little things that can be a big change.
Some people tell us the story about how that saved their life.
There will be 7 bands playing. Mental health speakers will also be scattered throughout the day, along with mental health resources and organizations.
All passionate about mental health. They're all there supporting the mission. You realize you're not alone, and there's that sense of belonging, sense of community.
They're expecting an even bigger crowd this year, with more big moments.
Bohemian Rhapsody was one of Evie's favorite songs. And when we did the sing-along at the end of the night last year, the whole place is packed and everybody is singing that. It would just give you chills.
JD Conti, KLTV7 News.
And if you'd like to go, the free concert starts tomorrow at noon. It will continue until 8 o'clock there on Earl Campbell Parkway. There will be activities for the kiddos and a pottery stand. We'll be right back.